Ethan, I heard a little something through the grapevine.
You heard something through the grapevine. What did you hear?
I heard that you, a member of Featurecast, were cordially invited to attend the New York Film Festival with the one rule that you purchase tickets to all your movies you would go to.
Yeah, that was the rule, is that they were like, we're going to invite you out, except you do have to pay for it as if you were a member of the public. And so that's, just so everyone knows, like, I'm actually pretty privileged and not special. But yes, I saw the 58th New York Film Festival this year. This year was all virtual. One thing to note about virtual film fests that, I don't know, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. A lot of people are like, oh, it's so hard for the movie industry right now because of, fucking whatever. One thing that's nice is that it makes film festivals a lot more accessible.
Whatever.
Geographically. Obviously, it's still not accessible financially for a lot of people. But there are a lot of people that normally wouldn't get to go see a lot of these movies right as they open or early, based just on where they live or like medical access. Some people like physically can't go out and see movies. So this is actually kind of a nice silver lining, is that you get access to a lot of these things. Actually something to talk about.
Yeah, I was not as lucky as Ethan to be invited to the New York Film Festival. I don't know. They must have sent my invitation to the wrong address. That's
Got lost
okay.
in the mail. Counted as a ballot.
2. Why not? But a lot of the films that were in the lineup did look really good.
Yeah. I'm going to talk about them. David, I'm going to talk about them in order.
That's what we're doing here? I thought we were just vaguely talking about the New York Film Festival.
Yeah, no film reviews whatsoever.
We were just going to talk about the
concept
process. Yeah.
Let's talk about their pamphlet. All right. So the first one I saw, this was their opening night feature, was Lovers Rock. This is a Steve McQueen film. Steve McQueen has a new project called The Small Axe anthology series, just called Small Axe. And this was kind of our first look at 3 of the ones that we're going to be playing with New York Film Fest. I did watch all of them. I really like this first one. So it's kind of the story of a joyous community house party. You got the calm and loving setup, the sensuous and stylish night of, and then the blissful and beautiful morning after. I loved how it was shot. It is so beautiful. It is a pretty short movie, is one thing to note, but that kind of shorter runtime allows you to be completely swept into the delicate and intimate grace of it all. It's so full of life, this film. Oh, I love it. It feels, this is kind of the first Steve McQueen film that feels nice and like is just enjoyable, Nothing the other ones aren't enjoyable, but it is much more kind of joyous. It is equally rhythmic and rapturous.
So is the premise for this one? I think you said that it was about a party.
Yeah, it's about a community house party, and it's all kind of
in a single night, right?
Yep. You get a little bit of the morning after, but man, just like the cinematography alone is worth watching. It is so much fun.
And in all 3 of the ones that are in this project are all roughly about the same length, right?
No, the length varies. So this one's only this one's a little over an hour long. One of the others was 2 hours and 10 minutes, and then another one was about an hour and 30. So they all are separate.
Wow,
yeah.
Never mind. Okay.
They all kind of take place around the same area in England. This is the only one that is a completely fictional story. The other ones are all rooted in some historical event.
Hell yeah.
So the sweet and nice one is the one that's fake. The next movie I saw was The Monopoly of Violence. This is the new David Dufresne's documentary. It's a pretty scathing and diegetic look at how the French police force responded to the Yellow Jacket protests that then became riots, which was back in 2018 and is still ongoing. The documentary itself is set up with conversations from those closely involved as they kind of relive these harrowing events. The footage is actually like displayed on a screen in front of them, so you can actually see that same footage. There's a lot of pretty challenging stuff to take in, not just because of the extreme content, but it's also got really impressively thorough ideological debates within it. The main question of the film, the main kind of core thesis, is the question of whether or not police should be the only party allowed a legitimate claim to violence and how far that claim is allowed to go unchecked. So for myself, it hit pretty close to home, as you know, David. And I think this is an incredibly timely documentary. It's a lot, honestly. There are some pretty intense and graphic sequences, some involving dismemberment, and a lot of them are coupled with equally disgusting attempts by police to justify that brutality. And while the dismemberment is definitely the most extreme example, it's not the only case of kind of horrific action at the hands of police that is shown. So not even just hearing people that experience talk about it, you do literally get to see it. Documentary challenges these actions kind of head on, never shying away from the tough and necessary conversations that are so vitally needed. It kind of balances that intensity with insightfulness. It's really good. It's really, really good. It is definitely not that easy of a watch, especially if you've been nearby or close to a lot of protests and stuff going on. It really, really hit home for me.
Yeah, no, I really want to see this one, mainly because of the praise that you've been giving it, and just because of the topical nature of it.
The third film I saw was The Inheritance. This is Ephraim Asseli's debut feature, and this one didn't land as well for me. It kind of tries to find a balance between its fictional scripted tale of a house for free thinkers and a kind of true, more documentary style approach, recollecting the Philadelphia Liberation Group move. But that balance doesn't always land exactly. When it does work, it works remarkably well, kind of bringing fresh energy and bold ideas of today, bouncing off the great works and tragedies of the past. But honestly, I think I would like it more if it was just a full-on documentary. But that's not to say that that kind of mixture of fiction and nonfiction isn't still an interesting approach. It definitely, it's not stylized as much as things like American Animals would be, or The Imposter would be, where it's kind of mixing those. The approach is not like that. The kind of main structure of the film is you have this new house, and the house that they're currently living in used to be the home of this actual group. And it's them kind of looking back on that group and trying to figure out where their place in history moving forward.
Weird.
It's interesting, but it doesn't land as well as it could. But it's definitely one that I'm going to be keeping an eye out on the director to see kind of where they go next, because I think they have a lot of really good ideas. It just didn't. The execution was not as it didn't land as well as I wanted it to. The fourth movie I saw is The Calming. This one is a very slow burn for it. But I really enjoyed it. So after the end of a serious relationship, we find our central character drifting through life, kind of taking time to travel as a way to find some tranquility. But they're often still outside a lot of it. A lot of the kind of emotions and inner turmoil is portrayed visually through these beautifully crafted framing and well-lit sequences. You have a lot of things that you kind of see the beauty of the places they're visiting, but you're only seeing that through hotel rooms or train windows. It's a meditative but still kind of beautiful journey through the need, but it doesn't ever feel the need for big emotional moments or kind of explosive revelations, right? The beauty is really in its simplicity, which kind of makes the most quiet moments poetic, if that makes sense. There's this kind of stillness to a lot of it.
Is there dialogue in this film?
Yes.
Okay. So is there more than one character? Because when you go to like the IMDb page, there's only a single actress listed.
No, there are other
Okay.
other folks about. You get to see like some family stuff. Really, that's one of the only. Like, it's mainly just the one girl.
Okay, gotcha.
And so it's a Song Fang film, and it feels like it could be kind of autobiographic, but it is. There are other people. It is very good though. I recommend it. The cinematography alone, very good. I don't think there were any ugly movies at New York Film Fest, so don't be surprised if I say everything looks really good. The next film I watched was All In: The Fight for Democracy, which became free on Amazon Prime like the day after I watched it.
Yeah,
so,
yep. Weird.
I got some issues with this one.
Uh-oh.
So the whole movie is about Stacey Abrams' campaign, and it ties that into voter suppression as a whole. The thing for me is it does a pretty apt job dealing with the topic of voter suppression, right? But it's way too hyper focused on voting being the only way to stop political corruption, and it comes off in this very like finger wagging and kind of annoying way where it's like, listen here, Busto, and it's like, well, yes, voter suppression is a very serious issue and that needs to be addressed. But that's not the only problem going on, and the way the narrative kind of paints it as it paints it as though it is the only thing adding like terrible things to the country, right? And to disproportionately to minority groups. And especially having watched The Monopoly of Violence before it, which is all about police brutality, it feels like maybe the voting part is not the most important thing going on, but it's still an important thing going on. So I don't know, it felt like it wanted to be trying to chew somebody out, and it's like, hey, you're not doing that well.
So does this one focus solely on Stacey Abrams? Or?
No, it talks a lot about other like kind of the history of voter suppression stuff. And that stuff is really interesting, but it's all kind of shaped around Stacey Abrams, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Okay.
Not too much though. It's a good balance of both. The sixth film I saw was Time. It's a harrowing and heart-wrenching documentary, and it tells the story of Sybil Fox Richardson. And it kind of goes through her unrelenting struggle to see her husband walk free again, in this really monolithic approach to intimacy, whereas like time is not measured in minutes per se, but in mercy. I cried over and over and over watching this. Often the stillness is what was the most shattering with everything. It kind of goes through a lot of kind of central ideas that are tied with prison abolitionist groups. So if you look at like Angela Davis once said, prisons do not disappear social problems, they disappear human beings. And that's on full display here. This is a perfect case study of the effect of that. Sybil Fox's struggle is, and I don't know, there's this kind of remarkable patience to her that really, really just like gets deep into your soul and goes straight for the heart. She has lines where she's talking, and one of the lines that stood out to me so much was she stated she wanted to get so far away from all of it that she didn't even remember what the pain felt like and how bad it was, you know? And it's a lot to take in. Yeah. It's powerfully resonant, passionately real, and painfully rarefied. So
It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
And another one, I think I'm looking at the list of this for the ones that you saw, like half of these either are already on Amazon, not already, but half of these like eventually will be on Amazon by the end of the year. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, a lot of these will be very, very accessible soon, which is nice. The next one I saw, the seventh film, was MLK/FBI.
I was so excited for this.
This one's interesting. So it is not as much of a portrait of Martin Luther King Jr. himself, but more about the kind of intense and pervasive degree to which the United States government was against his quote unquote radical ideas. I think it's a pretty timely reminder that the institution is adamantly and aggressively against just and genuine change. Basically, we've now seen categorical evidence of like every single decade intense misjustice by the government, and every new decade they're like, no, that was the old guys, we don't do that anymore. No, there's been no reform or change, but we're not bad guys anymore. No. So this one, it's a pretty stern showcase of the severe discrimination and targeted attacks that the government is very quick to give out. But it's also one thing to note about this that was a big takeaway for me is that it shows that he was not as much of a popular figure at the time as kind of a lot of American history will tell you nowadays. Like, one thing, we don't really learn about his opposition to Vietnam in our American history classes. And that's because it made him incredibly unpopular in pretty much all of those communities. But it is something that is morally consistent for him. And I think seeing a lot of that recontextualized is interesting. It is not... This movie is in no ways an uplifting portrait, right? It is at no point is it like, and things are all better now because he did that fun speech, right? It's none of that, right? It is a honest and brutal look at how he was treated from all sides, but mainly from the FBI.
Were you surprised, or were you disappointed with how you thought this one turned out? Because I don't think this one ranked very highly on your year-end list.
I gave it 4 stars.
At least last time I saw. Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah, no, I still liked it. It is not the... I think a lot of this... There were some really, really, insanely good documentaries from New York Film Fest that this one felt a little underwhelming, but it's still really, really solid. Moving on to our next film is Mangrove. So this is the second of the Steve McQueen films that was presented at this year's festivals. It's also my favorite of his movies from the festival this year. So this one kind of tells the story of Frank Critchlow's earnest attempt at creating a restaurant, which soon becomes a main focus for 2 main different groups, right? You have your black community activists and your white police. So it goes through kind of the discrimination and kind of revolutionization of this place, where your main character, Frank, he really just wanted to have a restaurant. That's all he wanted. He didn't want to have it be this kind of hub for everything else, but it quickly turned into that. There's numerous raids done by the police as intimidation and blatant racism. Soon after that, they kind of make a protest to defend the Mangrove's honor and role in the community, which of course is met with intense force and pushback from the police. The battle leads from the streets into the courthouse the following year, so you're kind of splitting the movie into 2 halves, right?
Oh.
So the first...
Is this the 2-hour one?
Yes. So the first half is... But it doesn't... It's not exact halves, and it all flows through correctly.
Yeah.
The first half is kind of more about the protests and before and leading up to that. And the second half is this courtroom drama. So both battles right, are full of emotion, corruption, and intensity. Steve McQueen's delicate vision brings humanity and empathy to what could have been a stuffy courtroom drama, kind of like the other big courtroom drama we got this year. The use of short focal length lenses adds this beautiful and tragic intimacy to everything. McQueen's use of natural light is used to its full effect. I don't know, all of his films always feel so like fully lived in, right? With these kind of rich and lush atmospheres. And that's on full force here. You will love this movie, David.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited for this.
Performances all around in this one are incredible. Most notably, Letitia Wright and Sean Parks are huge standouts for it. Yeah, I don't know. This Mangrove's both urgent and timeless in its emotions, delivering a kind of vital and passionate tale rooted in its realism for it. And it's the best courtroom drama of the year.
Hot take.
It's not that hot of a take. Right after I saw that, I watched the final Steve McQueen Small Axe film that was shown at New York Film Fest, which is Red, White, and Blue. This one stars John Boyega as you see his character kind of think about joining the police force, go through that kind of internal struggle of like, well, how do I do that as a black man? Is that right? Is that not? He decides ultimately that he does want to join because he wants to kind of build a gap between those communities, and doesn't go too well. So it takes a bit to fully form. It's really much a slow build about a young officer trying to help right the divides between his community. But it also emphasizes how deep the problem is. As John Boyega's character is faced with an intense amount of prejudice and hate from nearly all sides. The systemic issues are shown in its full color. He's your good apple. So that's how they're treated.
So this is definitely your least favorite of the three.
Correct, but it's still good. It is still good. This one's a much slower build, though. Like this,
Really?
This one would not hold up to other McQueen films. I think because it's packed in an anthology series, it gets away with a bit more than I think we would normally give.
Interesting.
But it's still good.
How's Boyega in this?
Very good. Very, very good.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool.
Next, I saw a short film. I saw a couple of other smaller short films as well, but they were much more experimental, like art shorts. So they're not really, I don't know, it's hard to discuss them without sounding too pretentious. And I already do that on the daily. So this is kind of the bigger short film as of note. So that's The Human Voice. So the 10th film on my list. It's Pedro Almodovar's new short film. It's also his first English language film, which is interesting. It stars Tilda Swinton as she kind of deals with isolation insecurities as she speaks with a leaving love on the phone. This is based off of a play. It was where the screenplay came from. It's a one woman act, and it was shot during lockdown. So this was all done in isolation.
Oh wow!
Which
that's really cool.
Which is perfect for this project. You kind of see Tilda Swinton go through a huge array of emotions. She wears a lot of these ornate and opulent dresses, which kind of match the emotional complexity at play, both of which change frequently. That kind of turmoil is matched with this rich tenderness. All around, I think it's a stunning portrait of absurdist anguish, if that makes sense.
Absurdist?
Yeah, which if you're familiar with Almodovar's work, should make sense. I really, really liked it. Tilda Swinton does have Phantom Thread on Blu-ray in the movie, so that's pretty good.
Wait,
Yeah.
really?
She's also
Wow.
wearing
Love
AirPods
that.
like the whole time.
That's,
Well, because she's on the
that's
phone,
weird.
right?
Oh, okay. Oh, is it like a phone call movie?
Yeah. So the whole, and you only hear her side of the phone call. You don't hear the rest.
I dig that. I love those.
It's so good though.
Wait, you only hear her. You don't hear the other
Correct.
person.
And
Oh
so
my
it's
God.
she
That's
just
it.
goes into these kind of like trailing monologues.
That's really
Tilda
cool.
Swinton is so good in this. Like this is like an actress's dream, is to have something like this where you can like fully flesh stuff out. Next, I saw Atarabian Mikelats. This one is pretty boring. I'm gonna be real.
Oh, geez, really? Savage.
It's not bad, but it is a little boring. Like I will not watch this again.
Damn.
So it's pretty high in its lofty aspirations, adapting this kind of this myth, this ancient myth. But it came off as relentlessly slow and stale. There are moments that are really good. All right. Moments that have like these incredibly great costume and set design and like really, really interesting atmospheric stuff, but it was kind of hard to ever fully sink my teeth into any of that scenery because I feel like here's one of the downsides of virtual filmmaking, or virtual film fest rather, is you can click pause and just walk away, and then you look at the runtime and you see how long you have left, and you're like, fuck. Oh no. Nothing's happened for 30 minutes. Oh no.
Is this the worst one that you saw?
No, the worst reviewed one I gave was All In.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, it's the second worst, don't worry.
Damn. Holy shit. Okay.
So then I followed that one up. My 12th movie of New York Film Fest was way better. That was David Byrne's American Utopia, which was a Broadway show that is now a kind of a concert on film. But it has a little bit more presentation than normal concert on films do. I went into this knowing I was already going to love it. Talking Heads is my favorite band of all time. So, like, of course I was going to love it. There's nothing quite like David Byrne's personal brand of absurdist optimism. And that's on full display in American Utopia. It's not quite reaching the perfectionist heights of Stop Making Sense, which is easily one of the greatest concert films of all time. But this latest venture, I genuinely think it will still sit comfortably in those kind of iconic concert films. There are these kind of spoken word transitions between a lot of the pieces, and they're both kind of poetic and personal while still holding on to that kind of signature goofiness of David Byrne. I went in expecting to thoroughly enjoy this, right? However, there's one scene that hit me like a train. This really like heavy emotional punch that only Spike Lee could really capture during one of the only non-Talking Head pieces performed. Absolutely ruined me, left me in tears.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So you know how Spike Lee always has his signature zoom in? Mm-hmm. That happens in this film as well during one of the pieces, except the parts that are zoomed in on were filmed on the same stage but not live. And I won't spoil what it is, but it hurts. Yeah.
What?
It's intense.
Weird. I think this one is also.
This one's on
currently
HBO
streaming,
Max.
so-
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I knew it was streaming somewhere.
So American Utopia is as fresh as it is freeing, delivering an auditory experience that I have already needed to revisit 3 times. Um, but I don't know. I have nothing but love for this project. It is so good.
Interesting.
Not as good at Stop Making Sense, but that's literally like the best concert film of all time. So it's okay that it is not as good as that.
You think I would like this one?
Yes.
Or no? Really?
Yeah, I think you'd enjoy it. The next film I saw is one that I genuinely didn't know was at the festival. And I saw it on there, and it was almost sold out, and I was like, oh, damn. I'm going to get in on that. And I did.
When you told me that this one was showing, this is the closest I was to actually buying a ticket to.
So this is Undine. It's the new Christian Petzold film. Christian Petzold most recently did Transit, which both you and I adored. We were both huge fans of that. This one is not as good as that, I will say, but it's still very good. This is much more of a kind of mythical love story. So you kind of focus on a historian that played by Paula Beer. Of course, this is the same two leads as Transit, which is also very interesting that it's all the same people back together. So we already know their chemistry works incredibly well. And that is no different jumping into this one. She meets up with a diver. And it's lucky for her that he's a diver because she, in classic myth, is a water spirit. So that's fun.
Weird.
But this is much more of a love story with that kind of hiding in the background. And like you don't really... It is not something like Shape of Water where it's like fully there and you can't escape it. It is a love story first. And then it brings in kind of that like enchanting mythological fairy tale stuff second. That's much more kind of bubbling in the background. I really enjoyed it. My only complaint that I have for this movie is there's one part that's shot. It's supposed to be at night, but it just looks like they made everything blue tinted.
Oh God, really?
And it doesn't look that good. But the rest of it's really, really good.
Why? Why would they do that?
I don't know. But that's the only thing that kept this only at a 4-star.
Oh, damn. Seriously?
If it didn't have that sequence, it would be higher.
Holy
yes.
shit, that's crazy. Wow. Okay. Is it okay?
Yeah,
Here's my
I
question.
loved it.
Is that something like that you noticed because you?
You would notice it.
Oh fuck. Okay. Damn. All right.
But I don't know. It's not like it's
Yikes.
not abrasively bad. It's just something that kind of stuck with me. The next film I saw, which was the kind of closer of the festival, but is not the last film I saw. So I didn't actually watch it as the closer, but it was meant to close the festival, whereas Lovers Rock opened the festival, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas Lovers Rock was a really, really beautiful, intimate, gorgeous opener to the festival, this is not that good of a closer. It's a good title for a closer. So essentially, this is the new Michelle Pfeiffer film. It stars her and Lucas Hedges. It's adapted off of a book, and essentially you have this kind of airy and full of themselves New York socialite who, after her husband dies, she decides that she's going to move to Paris, and she's kind of staying in one of her friends' like empty apartment because rich people just have empty apartments everywhere and homelessness isn't a thing they have to worry about. Her son follows her with and their new cat. The cat is interesting because the cat is not just a normal cat. The cat is actually her dead husband.
Wait a second.
So that's
wait a second.
interesting.
What's that?
Or at least she
Wait a second.
thinks
What's
that it
that dog
is.
movie that came out like 5 years ago? Is it like that movie?
Oh, you're talking about A Dog's Journey?
No.
where they just
No.
do all the things to kill the dog
No.
over and over.
No. The Shaggy Dog. 14 years ago.
You said a few years ago. No, you don't get to see Tim Allen turn into a cat in this one, unfortunately. This is much more like you have this kind of very, very eccentric woman saying, "Oh, this cat is my dead husband."
That's weird. Interesting. Interesting.
Michelle Pfeiffer's pretty good in it. Here's the thing about the movie, though, right? I think the movie is too weird for the normal Michelle Pfeiffer audience that would go see this, but not weird enough for the people that enjoy it. People that would be... It's not weird enough for the audience that would look into this movie because it's about a woman and her dead husband who's turned into a cat. So it's in this kind of awkward middle ground between those. But I don't know. It's not bad. It's weird and not in a fun and fresh way. It's just it kind of lands a little awkward in that middle ground.
Interesting.
I will definitely say that Michelle Pfeiffer has a much better performance than Lucas Hedges in this one.
No. Does Hedges kind of phone it in?
No, not phoning it in. Part of it is his character is just not that interesting.
Yeah.
So
I like Luke Hedges a lot. He's good.
So the actual final film I saw of the festival is Tragic Jungle.
I do like that title a lot.
It's a great title. This one, where Undine kind of didn't dive headfirst into kind of the enchanting mythos, this one does. This one, it kind of follows there's a group of Mexican gum workers, right, going around collecting things, and the first sequence you see of them collecting the gum from the trees is so cool. Like, it is absolutely gorgeous, and I loved that kind of opening the show with that. Meanwhile, you see this kind of strange woman that they meet, who we've also seen with a group of white men, these kind of rich, seemingly slave owners, although we don't spend a lot of time with them, and we kind of see this enchantment over these group of workers for it, but she still kind of follows this kind of ancient Mayan legend, and things get a little freaky at one point. But
How so?
Not as freaky as stuff in like The Lighthouse, or I would say level of freakiness I would put close to Enemy.
Weird.
If that makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
Like it's kind of momentary where you're like, huh? But it's good. I enjoyed it. It's also a pretty slow build, but I think that kind of works for this. It kind of builds up the kind of mystery of everything going on in the jungle. If I had to compare this to another movie set in the jungle, I would say that Manos is better. But this is still very good.
Are you sure you don't mean Jungle Cruise?
No, I haven't seen Jungle Cruise yet.
But you've seen the trailer, though, right?
I have seen the trailer, and I think I do like this more than I like the trailer for Jungle Cruise.
Hot take. That's the hot take of the year right there.
But those are all the films I saw at New York Film Fest. There were a couple of big ones that I didn't actually get to see there. I didn't get to see Nomadland, and then I also didn't get to see On the Rocks. I did then get to see On the Rocks early, but not through New York Film Fest. So I didn't include it with the list, even though I still got to see that early through AFI. But, you know, them's the breaks. So that's my list. There it is. Those are movies.